יחד לב אל לב נפתח ונראה את האור שבשמיים. יחד לב אל לב נפתח בתקווה, באהבה. איך שהלב נפתח.
What a beautiful sight! I am Melissa Landa, Director of Alliance for Israel and co-organizer of today's rally. And it is my distinct honor to welcome you to our No Fear rally in solidarity with the Jewish people. We stand here bound together by a 5,000-year history and a shared promise to our children that they will be free to live as proud Jews and exercise their religious liberties granted by the United States Constitution, free to wear their yarmulkes and Magen Davids, and free to speak about their love of Israel without being attacked in the streets of New York or Los Angeles. And we stand here as Americans with the collective right to live in safety and security. Anti-Semitism is a poison that affects us all as it seeps through the foundation of American society. And the perpetrators of that ancient hatred, whether Republicans like Marjorie Taylor Greene or Democrats like Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, they desecrate their oath of office and erode public trust in leadership with their hateful words. Well, we have had enough. We are a courageous, resilient, and creative people, always celebrating life and contributing generously to society. And we will continue to do so. But we are also strong and determined. And strong and determined we will remain, demanding change until this Jew hatred stops. Our show of solidarity today represents a coalition that crosses political, racial, religious, and denominational boundaries. And I want to offer my thanks to all the organizations that gave their time and resources to bring us together, to our speakers who have traveled near and far to share their stories, and to our rally team, including our selfless volunteers who worked so hard to make today possible. But most of all, thank you for being here today. Thank you for your passion, your dedication, and your solidarity. You have made today possible. Am Yisrael Chai.
My name is Noah Tishby and I'm Jewish. As I'm standing here today, I can't not think about my grandmother, Savta Fanya, who at 15 years of age had to stuff a piece of paper and eat it because she was afraid the Bolsheviks would learn she was a Jew. Or my grandfather Hanan, who wasn't allowed into sports club because he was a Jew. Or my great-grandfather Nahum, who was sent into prison in Siberia because he was a Jew. My family was not hated, discriminated against, or persecuted because of the actions of the state of Israel. Thank you. The governments they lived under and the people they lived among were not shy about telling them that it was because they were Jewish. Back then, there was no Jewish state to blame. Today, in many polite circles, it's not acceptable to identify as openly anti-Semitic. That's because today's Jew haters simply no longer have to. So much of the anti-Semitism of today simply attributes all the evil tropes, lies, and libel that have been used for centuries to justify the worst horrors against Jewish people to the Jewish state. As you will hear today, this hatred is being used to attack our Jewish communities, It is being used to impose a heavy cost on anyone who identifies as Jewish or even, God forbid, a Zionist. Now let's talk about Zionism just for a second, okay? All right? Zionism is a movement for Jewish liberation and self-determination in a Jewish, not exclusively Jewish state. Great, right? That's it. It's about the Jews, their right to live as free people after millennia of persecution in our ancestral land. When ignorant crowds and some supermodels on Instagram hatefully and irresponsibly spread these lies about Zionism, when they chant from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, when they engage in the modern day libel of blaming Israel as a genocidal state, they shouldn't be surprised when that demonization results in Jews being attacked on the streets of this beloved country, and it has to stop. Has to stop. Thank you. Today, I'm not just thinking about my grandparents, I'm actually also thinking about my son, Ari. And more than anything else, I wish for him to grow up in a world in which this hatred is eradicated once and for all. This is why I'm here today. For my ancestors, for my son, for your children, for all of our children, as together we say, enough is enough. Am Yisrael Chai, thank you so much. Thank you.
I felt like I should come up here and say I'm Megan McCain and I'm a Zionist because apparently this is now something that is controversial to say. And that has changed in the past few months, as Noah said, because some people on Instagram think that it is something that they can change. But us standing here as Americans are not going to sit down and take this lightly. First and foremost, it is equally as important to call out crazy people on the far right who say things like Jews will not replace us with tiki torches and compare the Holocaust to wearing a mask, as it is to people on the far left who are saying things like everything you already know, and I don't want to repeat it because I think it's so abhorrent. But for some reason in the past few months, it's been very difficult for people in the media and for people on Capitol Hill to call it out within their own party. We are seeing real-life ramifications. Friends of mine are scared to walk in the street in New York City. People who I work with are taking their mezuzahs down from their homes because they are scared of what's going to happen to their children inside. This is and no one's going to sit around and take it. We see what's happening because it has happened globally. It's happening in Europe, and we will not let it happen here in the United States of America. We cannot be quiet, we cannot be silent, and first and foremost, above all else, we cannot be scared. I'm here to tell all of you, you're not alone. I know this is scary. I am not Jewish, but I can see how scary it is because of all the friends in my life who are scared right now in a way that I have never seen in my entire life. I don't want to make this too personal, but when my dad died, and we were very close, as anyone who knows anything about me knows, Israel was one of the last conversations we had before he died. And he said, keep the flame, because there's no guarantee it's going to keep burning. I didn't take it seriously because it seemed so unfathomable that that would happen. He hasn't been dead 3 years, and look where we are. He was right. This is scary. All I'm here to say to all of you is that be proud Zionists, be proud Jews, be proud supporters, be proud allies. It is anti-Semitism being anti-Zionist, and I'm not scared to say that in front of all of you. The last thing I want to say is that for some reason, and I've seen it in politics, I've seen it in media, I work in both spaces. For some reason, it is very hard for people to call out bigotry, which we should, no matter who it's happening to in this country, because you have a right to believe whatever you want, worship to whatever God you want, and live in whatever space you want, knowing that you won't be attacked for what you believe. There's a lot of people right now that for some reason have a very difficult time calling this out. I'm here to tell you I will do everything I possibly can to continue doing what my dad did, if I can. There are people like Noah, there are people like Alma, there are allies everywhere. Please Don't be scared. Continue to step out, continue to fight, continue to keep the flame. We will not go down quietly. And people like Ilhan Omar that think that they are the only voices in this space are damn sure wrong. Thank you.
All right, hello, DC. My name is Alma Hernandez. I am very excited to be with you all from Arizona. I am Mexican, I am Jewish, and I am damn proud to be a Zionist. I am a Democrat, and I will not allow anyone to ever make me choose one of my identities. I will not allow a small minority to speak on behalf of our party because that is not who we are. And I am here today to tell you all, as a member of the community, that we will not allow anyone to take us backwards. It is time that we stand up and be unafraid. For far too long, our people have been terrified to speak out against anti-Semitic hate. In our community, anti-Semitism goes underreported, and enough is enough. When our synagogues are being defaced, when my town, Tucson, Arizona, a small town in Arizona, is dealing with 2 synagogues being vandalized, that is when we have to say enough is enough. We need to call out hate and bigotry regardless of what side of the aisle it is on. Because this is not an issue of one party. I will tell you, as someone who is an elected official, it happens on both. And we have to continue to call it out when we see it. I'm very proud that on Friday I found out that the governor, when I was on my way here, signed my Holocaust education bill. After 3 years of working hard to make sure we mandated Holocaust education in the state of Arizona, we finally got it done. And that didn't happen overnight, and that didn't happen with one party. That was a bipartisan effort, and I am proud to have led it. Now, I ask all of you, many of you who are young and students have messaged me that you're afraid to be visibly Jewish. And I tell you all not to be afraid. Hold your head up high, continue to be proud, continue to be a proud Zionist, and continue to celebrate who we are as people. We are not going anywhere. We are here to stay. And I ask all of you to do what you can to call out the hate and bigotry on both sides. Thank you.
If there's one message that I want to leave with you today, it's this: do not concede. Do not concede. Don't concede a single inch of your humanity. Don't concede a single inch of your identity, of your heritage, because the moment you do that, you've already lost. I stand on the shoulders of the great civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King, Bayard Rustin, Rosa Parks, Hank Aaron, Count Basie, Arthur Ashe, A. Philip Randolph, who unequivocally stood with Israel and the Jewish people. As a matter of fact, Bayard Rustin founded an organization called Black Americans Supporting Israel Committee. I stand on his shoulders today as I speak to you and say that I stand with you. We at IPSI stand with you. You have non-Jewish allies here who stand with you unequivocally. And I want to encourage you to say, do not concede. Do not concede.
It is my honor to stand here. My name is Menachem Creditor. It's my honor to stand here with my brother Joshua and to represent UJ Federation in New York, to stand with all of you in defense of all of our people. We're going to sing a song in a moment and ask you to sing along with us. The words might be familiar, but the words take renewal. The words are Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tsar me'od. The whole entire world is a very narrow bridge. Rav Nachman of Braslav wrote those words hundreds of years ago. They were set to music by Baruch Chait after the Yom Kippur War. And the second part of the song is what we call upon all of us, you and all of our families everywhere to remember. V'ha'ikar lo lefached klal. And the main thing to know is never to be afraid. Even when there is reason to be afraid, we do not stand afraid. And among the reasons that today is so glorious and so holy is because we don't vote the same way and we stand with one heart. Lo lefached klal, we're not afraid of what it is to be a klal, to stand in unity. We stand with our people, we stand with our homeland, we stand with our friends, and we sing. Kol haolam kulo. Let's hear you. Gesher tzar meod, Gesher tzar meod, Gesher tzar meod, Kol haolam kulo, Gesher tzar meod, Gesher tzar meod. Ve'ha'ika, ve'ha'ika, lo lefached, lo lefached klal. Ve'ha'ika, ve'ha'ika, lo lefached klal. One more time. Ve'ha'ika, ve'ha'ika, lo lefached, lo lefached klal. Ve'ha'ika, ve'ha'ika, lo lefached klal. Am Yisrael Chai.
Am Yisrael High.
Hello, everyone. I'm Talia Robb. Thank you for the honor of speaking to you today and linking my small story from Naperville, Illinois, to the story of the Jewish people. I organized a Walk for Israel, started an Instagram account, and put out flyers, and this made me a public target. I was bombarded with over 1,000 anti-Semitic remarks, vile words of hatred, and death threats. Keep walking until you reach hell. That's where you animals belong anyways. Them damn Jews are at it again. Hitler was the greatest of all time. As a young 17-year-old girl, seeing these comments, I was petrified. But I did not let them silence me. I doubled my efforts and grew in my resolve. After the rally, these threats and promises were kept. I was attacked, along with my friends and siblings. They burned our flags, attacked our cars in the center of the town. They surrounded us for one reason and one reason only, and that was because we proudly waved our Israeli flag. Their rallying cry, which still rings in my head, was "Kill the Jews." For the first time, I feared for my life. Had my brother Daniel not remained so strong, facing down these men until we could reach the police, it is up to one's worst imagination what could have been. Despite all, I refused to be silent. The day that I begin to live in fear is the day that they have won. I refuse to let them win. I refuse to be silenced the way that my helpless grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins were during the Holocaust as they feared for their lives and were ultimately marched to their deaths. Their voices will forever ring out through me and all of you here. My grandmother, who was once a young Jewish girl like me, often prayed while hiding during the Holocaust. Her prayer was, why could I have not been born a dog rather than a Jewish girl? For people would take in and feed a lost dog if found, yet the fate of a young Jewish girl was worse than death. I fight for my people so that no Jewish girl will ever say that prayer again. But this time, we are free. This time, we are strong. And this time, we will not be silenced. We are fueled by love. Love for our people, love for our heritage, and love for our homeland that triumphs their hate. To my people and our allies, we are free to control our destiny. We are strong, and we will not live in fear. Am Yisrael High!
Good afternoon, everyone. Judaism is made up of the people of Israel, the Torah of Israel, and the land of Israel. And they are inseparable. We have been persecuted for each, but today the hatred of the Jewish people comes nearly exclusively in the expression of hatred of the Jewish state. Our persecutors wish to pry us from supporting our homeland, and fear is their weapon of choice. This past week, we read from the Torah Parshat Matot, where Moses must remind those amongst the children of Israel who wish to stand aside in the war against their enemies of how grave a sin apathy in the face of evil is. Vayomer Moshe lifnei Gad v'lifnei Reuven, Achechem yovu lemilchama ve'atem yishavu po. Moses said to the descendants of Gad and descendants of Reuben, your brothers should go to war while you all stay here. Shema Yisrael, hear, O Israel, this is our response, and this time is different. We show Israel today that we are with them, we fight beside them, we go to war with them, and we stand with them. Let this not be an end, but a beginning, for having no fear is not enough. The course of action must be chazak ve'amatz, be strong and courageous. There's no lack of candor in our cause, no shame in its righteousness. You need not tremble. As former Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin said, I am not a Jew with trembling knees. I am a proud Jew with 3,700 years of civilized history. I am not a Jew with trembling knees. We are not trembling at the knees. The Jewish people do not tremble at the knees. And the nation of Israel certainly does not tremble at the knees. The Jewish people have 3,700 years of rich history. Long before our enemies of today, the Jewish nation faced the same libels and fought the same fight of existence. Allow me to invoke the Jews known as the Maccabees. And they roared to the Greek tyrant Antiochus, a line that could have come from any Jew who knows their history today. They said, we have not occupied a foreign land. We have not ruled over a foreign land. We have liberated the land of our forefathers from foreign occupation then and now. The Jews have come home to Judea, the children of Israel, to the land of Israel. Our army are the Maccabees of today, and we are here to stay. My friends, the Jewish psyche can no longer be one of victimhood. As I make my personal journey from Galut to Geulah, exile to redemption, let these final words be the ones to enter your hearts as I leave 1 month to the day to serve in the Israeli Defense Forces. Chazak ve'amatz, be strong and courageous. May the one who neither slumbers nor sleeps bless the state of Israel. And may God bless America, the land that I love.
My name is Matthew Haverim. I am Jewish, the first generation son of Jews who fled Iran. On May 18th, I was seated in front of a restaurant in Los Angeles when my table was attacked by a violent pro-Palestinian mob simply because we answered yes to their question, are you Jewish? 3 words that should sound the siren for any Jew in Baghdad or Beirut, but not Los Angeles. That night, a caravan of Palestinian flags stopped directly at our table, and with a megaphone they demanded, are you down with Palestine? You're either with us or against us. They sought to provoke us for no apparent reason, and we weren't interested. They continued to hound us. Are you Israeli? Are you Jewish? Stunned, we instinctively rose to our feet and responded yes. The man with the megaphone told us we ought to be ashamed of ourselves. The 4 of us were ambushed, outnumbered by 15 thugs. Our friend Maher ran to divert the attackers. Had he not done so, our injuries would have been unthinkable. Having grown up Armenian in Lebanon, he had more self-defense experience than we did. Our night ended with Maher in the hospital, my cousin treated for head wounds from repeated kicks to his head, and I got away lucky with just a couple punches to my face. I think about that moment. Why did I stand? Because I am a Jew and should have no reason to fear saying it. If you ask me if I'm Jewish, my answer will always be yes. My mom is here with me today. She and my father fled anti-Semitism in Iran to seek tolerance and liberty in America. And within a single generation, the shameful poison that corrupted the soil they left has crept up on our doorposts here in the US. Every year on Passover, we read in the Vehisha Amda that in every generation they rise up to destroy us, and the Holy One, blessed be He, delivers us from their hand. It is now our generation's turn. We're gathered here in DC because we now face open persecution from fellow Americans on our streets, on our campuses, on social media, and from some right here in DC. If our leaders can't call out anti-Semitism in Congress, how can we expect them to keep us safe on the street? Thank you to all of our allies. God bless you all. God bless America, and thank you for listening.
My name is Jeffrey Myers. I'm the rabbi of Tree of Life in Pittsburgh. For those whose memory is a little dim, on October 27, 2018, amidst Shabbat services, gunshots rang out. When all was said and done, 11 Jews died for the crime of being Jewish in America. I shouldn't have had to recite the vidui, the confessional final prayer upon one's death, because that's what I expected. Not in America. And yet here I am, nearly 3 years later, because it ain't done yet. We are the oldest continuous religious civilization on this planet. We date back to the pharaohs. Where's the Egyptian Empire? Gone. Babylonian Empire? Gone. Persian Empire? Gone. Keep going through the list of history. Through the Holy Roman Empire? Gone. The Ottoman Empire? Gone. The Third Reich, Ymach Shemam? Gone. We are still here. We learn in the Torah, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. You should love your neighbor as yourself. Apparently, there are a lot of people in America that don't love themselves. We clearly need to produce more psychologists in our medical school because there are a lot of people who don't love themselves. We just celebrated 4th of July, and we read in one of the holy documents of the United States, of which we stand in this magnificent area. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're all endowed by the Creator with certain inalienable rights, among them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To be an anti-Semite means you do not accept that pact of being an American. So you have a choice. If you want to be an American, you must, not should be, must live by those words. It is not a cafeteria. You don't go in with a tray and pick the words of the Declaration of Independence that you like. It's either the whole or none. So by being an anti-Semite, you're rejecting your own Declaration of Independence. So to all the anti-Semites, I say, make your choice. Are you going to be American or un-American? Which one is it? We just finished reading Matot Maseh, the 4th book of the Torah. Bamidbar starts really messy. Uprisings, arguments, a really sloppy book. But at the end of the book, They're united in purpose for one goal and one goal only, to enter the promised land. We thought the same thing here. After all, in Hebrew, we call this place Artzot Habrit, the land of the covenant. If you live here, you're part of that covenant. You accept what it means to be an American. To be an anti-Semite means to be un-American. We ended the book with a very powerful phrase that we say 5 times per year. Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. Notice the reflexive, v'nit chazek, that when we strengthen each other, boy, are we strong together. Our job is v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, to flood this nation with the waters of a mikveh, to flood away all of the evil so that we can all live in peace with one another the way we should be. Am Yisrael Chai.
When a victim has the strength to testify, he or she, like my father, is no longer a victim. They are a witness. Thank you, Dan, Talia, Rav Shlomo before you, Matthew and Rav Jeffrey. Your testimony gives focus to our work today. Today marks 1 week from Tisha B'Av, the darkest day on the Jewish calendar. The sages teach that it was our own hatred for each other that caused the destruction of the first and second temples. And in the weeks leading up to this rally, it was this fear that dominated my field of vision, the fear that our community was divided beyond repair. That fear is our enemy's dream. But looking out at all of you today, it becomes clear that instead of dividing us, the enemies of the Jewish people, whether from the right or the left, at home or abroad, they have instead united us. Here we stand, a coalition of Jews and our allies from all backgrounds, all political beliefs, and all religious affiliations who have come together to stand up against anti-Semitism. This coalition will not be silent, whether Jews are facing violence in Los Angeles, or Brooklyn, or Paris, or Tel Aviv. It won't be silent whether Jews are being attacked in our synagogues, in our streets, on our campuses, or on the floor of the House of Representatives. This coalition will never be silent in the face of hate. We can disagree, even passionately, without being divided. We can even disagree on Israel. One Jew's positions are often uncomfortable for another Jew to hear, but we must hear each other, because what unites us is so much stronger than that which divides us. We are here today because we care deeply, profoundly about Jewish lives and Jewish values. We must not tolerate calls for an end to the Jewish state of Israel through a one-state solution that once again would leave Jews defenseless. But we must also not tolerate denigration or hatred towards the aspirations for dignity and self-determination of our Palestinian cousins. If we hate, we will not win. Ve'ahavta et Adoshem Elokecha bechol levavcha uvechol nafshecha uvechol meodecha. You shall love God with all your heart, your soul, and your resources. My father's message was a message of love. Love of one's parents and ancestors, of one's children, of one's students and teachers, of learning, music, ideas, and above all else, his message was that to love the Creator is to love his creation, most of all, each other. It is a message I ask you all to remember. B'shivtecha b'veitecha, when you return home today, b'lechtecha v'derech, as you walk on your road, b'shachbecha, when you lie down, and v'kumecha, when you rise up. We have it within us to never again be divided in our purpose. I have no fear.
If I am not for myself, asked Hillel, who should be for me? And if I am for myself alone, what am I? If we do not stand with pride, with power, with passion against current expressions of the age-old scourge of anti-Semitism, who should speak out for us? Yet, if we are to succeed in staunching anti-Semitism and other hate crimes in America, we must make the tent of our coalition as large as possible. So on this day, Orthodox Jews, Reform Jews, conservative Jews, we stand united against anti-Semitism. Religious Jews and secular Jews united against anti-Semitism. Jews who vote Republican, Democratic, or Independent united against anti-Semitism. Supporters of West Bank settlements and critics of the occupation, as I am, we stand united against anti-Semitism. And I am proud to stand here today with distinguished non-Jewish religious, civic, and political leaders of both parties who have taken the spirit of Hillel's mandate to heart by standing with us in our time of need, who once again lock arms with us in confronting hate, in refusing to surrender to fear, just as they stood with us over decades in the Soviet Jewry, pro-Israel, anti-Semitism struggles. And to those Muslims and Christians and those of other religion, Black Americans and Latino Americans and the broad alliance of communities who these difficult past few years stood in solidarity with us in Pittsburgh and Poway, who condemned attacks against Jews on the street, who helped clean up graffiti and repair desecrations, who called anti-Semitism what it was. We are privileged that you are here with us today, including my friend and distinguished religious leader, Reverend Hawkins, with whom I share this platform and others later. And that call to stand not only for ourselves applies to us Jews as well. The most frequent command of the Bible is to protect the ger, the stranger, the non-Jew in our midst. In America in the 21st century, that means we must stand with all who are marginalized and discriminated, who the haters tried to make the others. African Americans who face systemic racism and suffer the nation's highest numbers of hate crime, even higher than we Jews are afflicted with. Immigrants who are demonized, LGBT community, women, all who are targets of hate and bigotry. For if any group can be victimized by hate, then no group will be safe. For anti-Semitic acts and hate crimes against others are more than mere acts of violence and desecration. Anti-Semitism and hate crimes are nothing less than attacks on the values that are the pillars of our republic and the guarantors of our freedom. Those who commit those crimes do so intending to tear us apart from within, dividing American against American, one minority against other minorities, Jew against Jew, fomenting violence, civil discord where they can. And we are here united today to say we will not let this stand. And how urgent must our response be? Well, the final phrase of Hillel's dictum answers that. You all know it, so join with me in Hebrew or English loud enough that all America will hear. Im lo achshav imatai, if not now, when? If not now, when? If not now, when? If not now, when? I sure wish I had went before David went. Say it with me. Hear, O Israel. The Lord our God is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all of your heart and love your neighbor as you love yourself. I am here, you can stop repeating now. I am here today to express my support for the Jewish community in the face of anti-Semitism, in the face of the shooting deaths and attempted murders at synagogues, stores, and homes. Now is a time of solidarity. Now is a time of unity. Now is a time of community. And I stand here, even though they're not on the stage, with my daughters Kayla and Selena, in oneness with you. I stand with my friends David Saperstein and Rabbi Jonah Pessner and others who have been advocates for justice in this country. In so many life and death situations, American Jews have stood with African Americans as we have marched and sacrificed alongside each other. I am here today because during the Civil Rights Movement, Jewish advocates made up half of the young people who participated in Mississippi Freedom Summer. I am here today because Jewish leaders were arrested with King and Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel. He marched arm in arm with King in the 1965 March on Selma. I am here today because the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act of 1964 were drafted in the Washington, D.C. conference room of the Religious Action Center of Reform Judaism. That's why I am here with you today. And I'm also here because when the three martyrs were killed in Philadelphia, Mississippi, two of them, Andrew Goodman and Michael Swerner, were Jewish Americans. And the third, James Earl Chaney, was black. Between 2013 and 2016, I marched with Jewish Americans throughout North Carolina during the Moral Monday movement with Reverend William Barber. I marched with young Jewish Americans on the streets of D.C. in commemoration of the death of Mr. George Floyd. And as it was mentioned, I stand with black leaders in New York City, Pittsburgh, Minneapolis, Los Angeles, and other cities who stood in solidarity with the Jewish community in response to the recent upsurge of hatred against Jews. We stand together, and just as your hats were the statement, there is no fear. And I close with quoting the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who said in 1964, it would be impossible to record the contributions that the Jewish people have made toward the Negro struggle for freedom. It has been so great. And he called Rabbi Heschel my rabbi. So I end with the words of King's rabbi. For many of us, the march from Selma to Montgomery was about protest and prayer. Legs are not lips, and walking is not kneeling. And yet our legs uttered songs, even without words. Our march was worship. I felt that my legs were praying. Let us keep on praying through marching and protesting and lifting high our voices, saying that we have no fear today. But today we are one people in faith, in action, and in solidarity. No fear.
In this hallowed place, look across. In the shadow of the U.S. Capitol, we are reminded of America's enduring commitment to democracy, pluralism, and inclusion. And we say to those of you whose minds or hearts are corrupted by bigotry and anti-Semitism, we will not cower, and you will never win. It doesn't matter whether you cloak your hatred against Jews and white supremacy or against double standards against Israel. The Jewish people will not be divided. We will fight anti-Semitism from the right, and we will fight it from the left. We will hold both of our political parties and all of our elected officials responsible and accountable for protecting Jewish Americans from hatred and oppression. To those who think you can intimidate us, I say, there is no excuse for hating Jews. Words matter. Words falsely accusing Israel of racism or heinous crimes are poisonous. On that Capitol, the words are engraved of FDR that say, we must remember that any oppression, any injustice, and any hatred is a wedge designed to attack our civilization. My friends, we must not allow injustice to attack our civilization. We will stand proudly with our Jewish identities. We will wear our Jewish stars and head coverings in public. We will unapologetically support the state of Israel. And together with our friends from across the nation, we will defeat anti-Semitism and reinforce the fabric of our beloved America. People of goodwill from every background and every faith and every political persuasion across America are confronting the world's oldest hatred. We say, no more senseless hatred, no more senseless violence against Jews, no more violence against anyone for the sin of being who they are.
We see it today in the violent attacks against Jews, even in this country, the freest and most tolerant nation on earth. We see it in attempts to push Jews out of academia and communities just because they are Jews. We see it in the chants of "Jews will not replace us" that we heard in Charlottesville. We see it in campaigns such as BDS that demonize the Jewish state of Israel, delegitimize Jewish identity, and seek to destroy Jewish peoplehood. Anti-Zionism is a cloak for anti-Semitism. I represent the Republican Jewish Coalition. I am proud to stand here today with Representative Ron Klein, the head of the Jewish Democrat Council, to affirm that the fight against anti-Semitism is not a partisan issue. The RJC and the Jewish Democrat Council have major policy differences. Ron, we continue to believe that the Iran nuclear deal is a bad deal for the United States and for Israel. But we stand united in the belief that each of us has a responsibility to call out anti-Semitism in the political arena, whether it is in our own party or whether it rears its ugly face on the other side of the aisle. The RJC has not been afraid to publicly condemn Republicans who traffic in anti-Semitic tropes. Last year, we raised money to defeat a Republican incumbent congressman with a history of making biased statements, and then help a strong pro-Israel Republican win his seat. But the problem is not just on the right. The violent attacks against Orthodox Jews in New York City, or standing outside a kosher restaurant in LA, which we just heard, or the rabbi who was here today standing outside the Chabad in Boston, were not done by neo-Nazis. The pressure to censor Jewish voices in our universities and the media is not coming from the right. Anti-Semitism is also a growing, serious problem on the progressive left, becoming louder today, even in the hallowed halls of the United States Congress. Anti-Semitism is not just a Republican problem or a Democrat problem, and Republicans and Democrats share a common interest in calling it out whenever we see it, even if it's in our own backyard. In these sharply divided partisan times, I am confronted by the reality reflected in Representative Klein and I standing on this podium here together, that the fight against anti-Semitism bridges the political divide. United we stand, divided we fall. Let's continue to come together as Republicans, Democrats, Independents in the fight against anti-Semitism, so that America will forever be a land where Jews can simply be Jews, can be proud to be Jews with no fear, to live in safety, freedom, and prosperity. Baruch Hashem.
I stand here as a former Democratic congressman and chair of the Jewish Democratic Council of America, along with my colleague, Senator Coleman. Together, we say there is no place in America for anti-Semitism from any source, not from either side of the aisle, from any group, individual, or elected official. Too often, critically important issues such as anti-Semitism are politicized or used as a wedge issue in support of a political agenda. We must stand together to send a message of unity against hate. Our history shows over and over again that the Jewish people have been stereotyped, demonized, scapegoated, and targeted. We also know that even when we are the first targets, we're not the last. And attacks against any of us are attacks against all of us.
6 months ago at the Capitol, just behind us, we witnessed extremists and anti-Semites wearing their hatred on their chests. In recent years, Jews have been murdered in American synagogues by right-wing extremists and threatened on American streets, and it had nothing to do with Israel. In recent times, hostilities between Israel and Hamas have been used as an excuse to attack American Jews. Enough is enough. Just as criticism of American leaders does not make us less patriotic, so too occasional criticism of the policies of Israeli government is not inherently anti-Semitic. However, make no mistake about it, using the actions of the state of Israel as an excuse to attack Jews and the practice of Judaism is anti-Semitism, pure and simple. Similarly, there are those who articulate either aggressively or in their silence they condone anti-Semitic language or behavior. These people must be exposed and condemned for who they are. It cannot be a norm in America for Jews or any other religion, racial, or ethnic group to be slandered, libeled, or physically assaulted or attacked. Enough is enough. Today, we stand together as elected leaders from both political parties, faith leaders, business, and community leaders to send a clear message that anti-Semitism has no place in America or anywhere in the world.
Good afternoon. We gather today in the nation's capital to raise our voices in response to the alarming rise of anti-Semitism in America. Thank you. Toda rabah. I'm truly honored to stand before you today representing President Biden, Vice President Harris, and our entire administration. I'm here to carry a message of unwavering solidarity with the Jewish community and an enduring commitment to combating anti-Semitism. On behalf of the entire Biden-Harris administration, I want to applaud Elisha Wiesel for his leadership and determination to extend his father's legacy of moral courage. I also want to thank the many co-sponsoring organizations and allies that have come together to make this event possible. I'm especially proud to be here as a representative of the administration who has also had the privilege to work amongst you when I led an extraordinary team at the Anti-Defamation League of communal professionals in the government relations, community engagement, and interreligious spaces. Throughout our history, anti-Semitism has time and again reared its ugly head, resulting in the persecution of Jews wherever they lived over the centuries. But here in the United States, protection of religious freedom is sacrosanct, inscribed in the First Amendment of our Constitution, and the Jewish communities are an essential part of our American story. American Jews have maintained their bond with tradition while building a vibrant and distinct American Jewish identity that is rooted in shared Jewish values and a shared commitment to the foundational values of our democracy. It is an identity that finds its expression through family and community ties, worship and study, social justice work here and abroad, and support for and connection to a democratic Israel that exists in peace and security aside its neighbors. So many Jewish families first came to America fleeing virulent anti-Semitism in other parts of the world, but in a nation that has struggled to fulfill its promise of liberty and equality for all, American Jews have continued to face the scourge of homegrown anti-Semitism, coming from those whose hatred, ignorance, or willingness to believe conspiracy theories motivates them to demonize and attack Jews. When anti-Semitism and racism reared its ugly head 4 summers ago at the white supremacist rally in Charlottesville, Joe Biden immediately recognized the danger of what this terrible event represented. And he launched his campaign for president on the idea that we were in a battle for the soul of our nation. President Biden was inaugurated this past January, a few feet away from here, in the shadow of the very Capitol that was the site of a violent insurrection fueled by division, lawlessness, hatred, and disrespect for democracy. Anti-Semitism, represented by the infamous Camp Auschwitz sweatshirt, was a part of that toxic narrative that fueled this terrible event. We have seen hatred emboldened and anti-Semitic incidents rise. A Jewish man attacked in Midtown Manhattan, families threatened while eating outside in Los Angeles, swastikas carved into the door of a synagogue in Salt Lake City, a Holocaust museum in Florida vandalized, a rabbi in Boston stabbed. As President Biden said about such attacks, they are despicable, unconscionable, and un-American, and they must stop. The Biden-Harris administration is using all available tools to prevent and combat anti-Semitism. President Biden recently signed a new hate crimes law, and the administration is working to make sure that that law is swiftly and fully implemented. We developed and are implementing the first comprehensive national strategy to counter domestic violence and extremism. We're providing support to Jewish communities so that they can provide synagogues and other communal institutions. Secretary Blinken recently signed an agreement with Germany to produce strategies and tools that governments can use to improve education and training on the Holocaust, counter Holocaust denial and distortion, combat anti-Semitism, and to ensure that policymakers have a strong understanding of these issues and of their responsibility to act. Standing up to anti-Semitism and other forms of bigotry and hatred is our shared responsibility. As President Biden so often says, silence is complicity. And each and every one of you attending this rally today, in person or virtually, also understands that shared responsibility to come together, speak out, and fight the evil of anti-Semitism. And the Biden-Harris administration stands with you and with the Jewish community. We welcome your activism, hear your message, and are ready to work with you every step of the way to combat bigotry and hatred that continue to fuel pernicious anti-Semitism, racism, and other forms of hate. Thank you again for the opportunity to join you today.
One second. I'd like everybody to thank President Biden for the way that the White House stood with Israel during the Gaza war. I think the President and the White House deserve our appreciation. Thank you very much.
It's really humbling today to stand here in a spot looking out at the Washington Monument and the Lincoln Memorial, and of course all the memorials of those who served to protect this great country, and standing here in front of the United States Capitol, the world symbol of the great democracy that I have the pleasure to serve in. I'm here today as the only official representative of the only Jewish state that we have. And I'm here to stand to tell you that I'm here in solidarity, that we are all in solidarity with the Jewish community here, just as it stands in solidarity with we in the state of Israel when we're faced with terror and people who want to murder us. You may support us. It's okay to criticize us. But nothing that we do can ever be an excuse for attacks against Jewish people anywhere in the world. We should never stand for it, and we all have the right in Israel, the United States, and everywhere to live, practice, and conduct our lives with no fear. Let's all be clear today. No one can come between the Jewish people and the Jewish state. The Jewish state and the Jewish people will always stand together. And let's also be very, very clear. No one can come between the United States of America and the state of Israel, or the state of Israel and the United States of America. God bless the state of Israel, and God bless the United States of America.
Chazak ve'ematz.
We're here because anti-Semitism is a scourge. It is a cancer. Unfortunately, this cancer is not going anywhere. It goes into remission, but lately it's metastasized, not only through our schools, our media, and our Congress. We need to get rid of that cancer as much as we can. We will never get rid of it 100% as long as we exist, with the exception when Mashiach comes, and please God, let him come soon. But we have got to work together as one people. It doesn't matter where you are politically. We've got to speak out, speak up. When you see anti-Semitism, speak out, speak up. Don't hide. We've got to put our congressmen's feet to the fire. And if our Congress people are the source of the anti-Semitism, we got to get them out. We need to remove Paul Gosar. We need to remove Ilhan Omar. We need to remove Marjorie Taylor Greene. We need to remove Rashida Tlaib. We need to remove the anti-Semites. Because how can we ask them to protect us when they are the ones who are causing us pain? Get out there. Have no fear. Don't hide. Be proud that you're Jewish. Yisrael High.
Thank you all. I was raised at the center of the white nationalist movement in America, and that means a movement that is international, and it is a movement that is rooted in anti-Semitism. I spent the first 2 decades of my life advocating, believing, meeting its leaders, attending its rallies, running for office, and I would maybe still be there had it not been for an invitation to a Shabbat dinner. White nationalism is a racist movement, but it, at its core, is anti-Semitism. So when I look back at that experience and realize that the people who were targeted, the people who were made to be afraid, were the ones who reached out to me, I say now that that is not fair. That is not acceptable. That is amazing to me. This ideology is responsible for Charlottesville, where people march saying Jews will not replace us. This ideology is responsible for many of the people who attacked the Capitol 6 months ago, wearing T-shirts and carrying signs that defended the Holocaust. This ideology motivated the attacks on the Mother Emanuel Church in Charleston, the same as it motivated the attacks on the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. This ideology has existed for decades, and this ideology is growing. When I look back on the people who reached out to me, the people who spent years talking to me, the people who were threatened, the people who experienced the hatred, I recognize, and I know that we all must recognize, that it is not the responsibility of the people who are targeted, who are afraid, to overcome that fear, to overcome that hatred, and to speak out, to reach out, to try to change our society, and yet, over and over again, it is. You are those people. You are here today because you know that we call them hate groups, but they are motivated by fear. They are consumed by fear. Every one of their actions is motivated by fear, but we are here today because we are not. We do not let fear rule our lives. Over the years, since condemning this ideology, condemning the world that I grew up in, I have worked with people who have fought racism, who have fought anti-Semitism, who have fought anti-LGBT activism. In all of those spaces, I have worked with proud Jewish Americans who are there fighting for other people, who are there organizing rallies, who are there speaking out, who are there to change America. It is our responsibility. It is my responsibility. It is the responsibility of everyone who hears this and everyone who wants a different future to recognize that we must also stand and speak against anti-Semitism. It is an ideology that targets Jewish people, the same as it targets every marginalized person in America. And if we quiver or waver for a second in our belief that we must defend against anti-Semitism, we have failed in our actions, we have failed in our efforts. I am here to say that I support you, I am here to say that I am with you, and I am here to say that I do not have fear.
Despite the fact that I'm not Jewish, a big part of my life was defined by anti-Semitism. Growing up in Egypt, anti-Semitism was considered to be the default position for many. Many wanted to make hating Jews and completely and utterly vilifying and demonizing the state of Israel to be one of the pillars of religious and cultural identity. When I was a child, many of the plots of my favorite TV shows, movies, were about international Jewish conspiracies to dominate media and politics. The words Jewish, Zionist, Israeli were just synonyms. It took me a long educational journey to be able to pull myself out of such a hateful ideology and see anti-Semitism for what it really is: a monstrous ideology and a dark theory of everything. A toxic force that tears to pieces any society of which it takes hold. Just look at the Middle East today. Yeah. I learned that anti-Semitism is not just a Jewish problem. It's everybody's problem. And everyone must do everything to stop such a mad delusion. I quickly also learned that often when you point out the problem, you immediately become the problem. Just bringing up the issue of anti-Semitism has the power to immediately make you the target of anti-Semitic attacks. I ended up having to leave Egypt, and I still constantly receive accusations that I'm a traitor who sold himself to Jewish money. Moving to the US in 2012, I thought I left pervasive anti-Semitism behind, only to see it rising at a dazzling speed here in America. I watched as anti-Semitism spilled out of campuses into our mainstream media, political institutions, and public discourse. Modern blood libels are being fabricated and broadcasted, in which, again, the bloodthirsty Jew is murdering children. Coverage of Israel in American mainstream media reminds me, in all honesty, and I'm not exaggerating, of what I used to watch on Al Jazeera when I was a child. Coward anti-Semites hide behind their minority identity in order to assault Jews with impunity. And others hide behind their moral righteousness to demonize the state of Israel. Let me say this. Anti-Semitism is anti-Semitism, whether it comes from a brown, black, or a white person. Anti-Semitism is anti-Semitism, whether it comes from a Christian, a Muslim, an atheist, or even from a Jew. Whether from a Democrat or a Republican. The color of one's skin and one's religious identity do not give one an exemption from human decency. It's shameful and alarming, truly, that while in the Middle East, many Arab countries are starting to move away from the toxic legacy of anti-Semitism, signing peace treaties with Israel and rediscovering our mutual Abrahamic ties, the same old disease returns in America. What I have learned is that the duty of each of us is to stand up to this blind hatred in order to stop it, to speak up and speak out. That is why I'm so honored to be with you here today, to stand against anti-Semitism together. Am Yisrael Chai. Thank you.
The reason we're here is not a new one. Anti-Semitism or Jew hatred is the oldest bigotry that we have since the times of Lavan and Amalek. Our people have been attacked. But history has also taught us the answer to hatred: to be a prouder Jew. When I arrived in Washington this morning, I spoke to Rabbi Levi Shem Tov, the Executive Vice President of American Friends of Lubavitch Chabad's office here in Washington, and a massive advocate for Jews all over the world from right here in D.C. He had wanted to be here today, but there was a memorial service in his community happening right now and he wasn't able to be here. But he reminded me of something the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, my personal mentor and the foremost leader of world Judaism in the modern era, once said. He said, a common, albeit faulty, reaction to anti-Semitism is to promote assimilation. The assumption is that anti-Semitic sentiments arise only as a result of the Jewish community being so different and eccentric. And if we could only hide our Jewishness and blend in society, the thinking goes the acceptance would be forthcoming. History, especially recent events, have sadly disproved this line of thinking. As much as our enemies hate Jews who are different and religious, they hate the assimilated Jew even more. The Rebbe concluded that we should never be embarrassed and never attempt to hide who we are. We can only fool ourselves. The world knows who we are. You might as well wear it proudly. The Rebbe said these words in 1960, but they're as true today as they were then. The first step to combat hate is to stand up proudly as a Jew. Ani Yehudi, I am a Jew. Am Yisrael Chai, the nation of Israel lives. And each and every one of you is doing that right now today. But it's only the first step. It continues when we go home, and our response cannot end here today. Our response to those who want to harm Jews is to embrace our Judaism. It's to engage in our Judaism, to participate in Jewish life, to wrap tefillin, to light Shabbos candles, to put mezuzahs on our doors, to support Jewish education in Jewish communities, to support our fellow Jews and to stand together as one. To stand together for every single Jew, Ashkenaz, Sfard, religious, Haredi, any Jew you can imagine we have to stand with. Because if we don't stand with one Jew, we don't stand with any Jews. On my campus at the University of Kentucky, when we had anti-Semitism, I looked for voices and I found them in the youth of our community, in people like Eliza Lou and Isabella and Blake, who are standing right here behind me, in Jewish on Campus, Sasha Goodman, David Banger, and many, many others who stood up proudly with our community. And in our state in Kentucky, we passed Holocaust education. We passed an anti-BDS bill. We passed the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, becoming the first state in the country to pass that definition. We need to stand up together as one people, Am Yisrael Chai, for every single Jew, for Jews locally, for Jews globally, and especially for Jews living in the land of Israel, where God's eye is on it, Miresh Hashanah, Achar Hashanah, from the first day of the year to the last day of the year. We come together in response to hate, but our message in response is one of light. And we have to stand together as sources of light, standing up to the darkness, because when light appears, darkness ceases to be there. And we need to commit to continue being sources of light, no matter what happens, no matter how long it takes, and until the ultimate light comes and the promised era comes with the coming of Mashiach. Thank you all for being here today, and please carry this on tomorrow.
Jews are being told that the price for admission to social and racial justice movements is that they must deny their history, abandon their people, and disavow their homeland. That is anti-Semitism. Judaism is more than a religion. Jews share not only a common faith, but also a sense of Jewish peoplehood and a deep connection to the land of Israel. For many Jews, solidarity with Israel is integral to their identity as Jews. We express our Judaism in many different ways, but no one should ever be harassed, marginalized, or dehumanized for expression of their Jewish identity. Standing in the shadow of the Capitol, we take pride in knowing that America values diversity and has laws that protect Jews against discrimination on the basis of race, religion, and national ethnic origin. I speak nearly each and every day to students on university campuses who are experiencing this type of anti-Semitic discrimination. Students who express support for Israel, as you will soon hear, are being ridiculed, labeled as racist, ostracized, and excluded from university clubs and positions in student government. They are made to feel ashamed for taking pride in their Jewish heritage. When Jews celebrate the fact that there's a country where the national calendar is the Jewish calendar, where Jews are free to practice their faith with pride, where Hebrew is the spoken language, and where Jews today can walk on the same stones that the ancient Hebrews and King David walked on centuries ago. When Jews take pride in all that the Jewish state of Israel contributes to the world in the areas of medicine, agriculture, cyber, high-tech, science, and humanitarian aid, that has nothing to do with the Arab-Israeli conflict. It is an expression of Jewish ethnic pride. The ancient Jewish people were the first to understand that all human beings are created in God's image. We taught the world that all humanity is created equal. Social justice ideals began with Judaism. That is why Jews have historically led the organizations that strive for equal justice and dignity for all. But today, Jews are finding themselves excluded from these movements. Why? Because they take pride in their Jewish heritage. A world that cannot appreciate Jews is a world that does not tolerate difference. That is why anti-Semitism is not a Jewish problem. It is everyone's problem. And for the health of our society, it must stop now. Say it with me. It must stop now. Whether you are Ashkenazi, Sfaradi, Mizrahi, or a Jew of color, Chiloni or Haredi, Orthodox, conservative, reform, or Reconstructionist, a Jew by birth or a Jew by choice, we must remember that we are all Am Yisrael, the people of Israel, and Eretz Yisrael is our homeland. We must stand proud. We must speak loud. To those who seek to divide and destroy us, we say, Am Yisrael Chai. The people of Israel live. To those who try to shame us, we stand proud and say, Am Yisrael Chai. Say it with me. Am Yisrael Chai. Say it louder. Am Yisrael Chai. Say it prouder. Am Yisrael Chai. Once more. Am Yisrael Chai. Thank you.
This is resilience. United here today, we represent the dream of so many before us. Jewish survival. My name is Isabella Hazan, and I am a proud Jew. I am the descendants of Jews who chose to preserve their Jewish identity. And because they risked their lives to be Jews, I am here. This is the story of the Jew. My family is among 850,000 Mizrahi Jews who fled the Middle East and North Africa because of Jew hatred. We were dhimmis, second-class citizens, fleeing for survival. This is the universal story of the Jew. The Jewish story is one of resilience, survival, and commitment to Jewish life. Throughout history, Jew hatred has plagued every generation and corner of the globe. I am angry that in 2021, it is no different. I am angry that in Montreal, my friend had to plead for her life as she was cornered in an alley by 8 racist men. I am angry that Jews in LA are attacked at restaurants. And I am angry that Jews in New York are beat on the streets. I am angry in France, Sarah Halimi's murderer walks free. I am angry Israeli children run to bomb shelters praying for a tomorrow. I am angry Jewish and Israeli institutions are vandalized with no condemnation from officials. I am angry a rabbi was stabbed and held at gunpoint in America in 2021. I am angry. The current surge in anti-Jewish violence across the globe, the scale, the severity of these attacks speak for themselves. So too does the silence from the world. The world continues to turn a blind eye to the oldest hatred, which once again leaves a stain on their global conscience. There are those who ask, where was God? But where are the people? Why? Where are our allies? Why is the slogan, never again, valid and unquestioned for all movements and causes, yet dismissed for the people who this promise was intended to protect the Jewish people? Why? Never again is now. Never again is not a mere slogan, it is a call to action. And united here today, Jews and allies, we are the call to action. The most powerful Jewish resistance is to be proud of our ancient traditions, culture, and peoplehood, originating from the land of Israel. Our earned Jewish identity and love for Israel is forever embedded in our souls, because Israel's right to exist is the Jewish right to exist. Last month, my star was nearly ripped off my neck, but I refused to take it off. I refuse to cower in fear. I stand before you as a proud Jew. Wear your Magen David with pride today and always. Our strength is in our unity. And I didn't say yet, but I am angry that Sammy Steigman is here today, a Holocaust survivor, having to once again stand up against Jew hatred. Our strength is in our unity. Am Israel Chai.
Hello, Washington, D.C. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. O Davinu Chai, O Davinu Chai. O Davinu, O Davinu, O Davinu Chai. O Davinu Chai. Woo! Our story is one of resilience. From the pogroms of Eastern Europe to a tiny tenement home in the East Village of Manhattan, my family was the embodiment of the American dream. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful to this country, which is why I have no choice to speak out against the rise in anti-Semitism. For not only does it threaten us Jews, but it threatens the very soul of this golden diaspora. I have no choice but to speak out against lies, conspiracy theories, and demonizing words said against my people. Yeah, I have no choice but to speak out against violence, whether it be on a subway car, at a restaurant, in a synagogue, or at a grocery store. I have no choice but to speak out against the disgusting campaign to eliminate Israel and to render our people homeless and defenseless once more. I have no choice but to speak out for Jewish young people who feel they don't belong in their classrooms and in their campus organizations because Hatikva is more than just a song to them. I have a message to campus administrators, professors, diversity and inclusion officers, and administrators across the board at our universities. You are failing us. Not only are you failing us, but you are going one step further, and when you do speak out correctly, you apologize for it. I will never stop speaking out against anti-Semitism, and I do this without distinction. My people are far more important than my politics. So my message to my fellow Jews and everyone gathered here today is this: if you are not addressing hatred, wherever or whoever it may come from, because it doesn't apply with your political ideology, kindly shut up, sit down, and log off, because the next generation of Maccabees is speaking. Today, I stand on the shoulders of Hannah Shenesh, of Golda Meir, of Natan Sharansky, and of Theodore Herzl, who promised us that there is nothing preventing the Jewish people from greatness so long as we take our destiny into our own hands. And today, I speak holding on to the memories of Daniel Pearl, of Sarah Halimi, and of Anne, who promised us that despite everything, people were still good at heart. America, the disease of anti-Semitism must be rooted out and destroyed, even if it does not call itself anti-Semitism, even if it sounds like social justice, even if it sounds like progress. We will not fall for that again. And to our British Jews, we appreciate your allyship and support in making sure that Corbynism and Soviet propaganda never comes to these shores. The character of our great nation and the safety of the Jewish people depend on putting politics aside and on refusing to negotiate on any part of our identity as Jews. God bless America, and Am Yisrael Chai.
I'm joined here by Melissa from Alliance for Israel. She was the spark for this event. Our two anchor sponsors, Alan Ronkin from the AJC, Meredith Wiesel from the ADL. I have to tell you, these organizations have been rock solid. This was not an easy rally to put together, and we are grateful to you for coming out in the heat to stand against anti-Semitism as one people. La 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 la. La 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 la.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more. Simply visit the JBS website at jbstv.org and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check to JBS, Post Office Box 360, Stamford, Connecticut 06904. Or you can call the JBS Pledge Line at 833-MY-JBS-TV. That's 833-695-2788. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. We thank you for your kind support.